Okay, so the game is still going nuts. This should have been my first clue. Bookcase optos. We get the error in the test report. That's my first clue. But then after we get past this, watch this. The game just starts going nuts. Anything related to optos, it's just not working. Now, I get past this, and what I was finding is I go to press these buttons down here, and I can't get out of the menu. Or if I do, look, it starts adding the volume automatically. Pull the speaker wire. So it starts pulling the volume automatically, and look, it's still in that volume mode. It's still incrementing the volume. Now, this is the optic board underneath the playfield that controls all the optics. Now watch what happens. If I disconnect this thing, this plug right here, okay, pull that plug off, and that powers down this board. You can see the LED goes off. Look, it comes out of the volume up mode. So anytime I plug this in, the game goes nuts. Here, I'll hook the speaker back up. Now watch. See, okay, it's still in the. Now watch when I hook this on. What it starts to just go crazy. Watch this. See, look, it automatically exited the test mode, and things just start going wacky. So I think we've got a problem on this board, and when I take it off, the game behaves a lot better. So there isn't a lot on this board, just two LM339 chips, which are voltage comparators, and a bunch of diodes, which you can test. I actually tested all the diodes, I tested all the resistors, everything is fine. That only leaves me with these two chips. Put it on for just a second. Take it off, and it all stops. Something's up. So I replaced those LM339s on that optic board. It didn't make any change. So I'm looking at the 12 volt regulated supply, which is the voltage that supplies the whole switch matrix, and I'm coming to the conclusion that maybe there's a problem there. And I'm looking at this little guy is a voltage regulator for 12 volts. There's some other stuff that does 12 volts, but this is one of them. There's actually a couple. There's unregulated and regulated, and we're looking at the regulated side. This capacitor has really got me befuddled. Is that a good word? I mean, I can see electrolyte around the base of it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this cap. I've seen these die before. I'm hoping that this is going to be our big culprit. Here's our problem. Look, I can see the electrolyte that's just come out of the bottom of this cap. This cap's had it. And this is again for the 12 volt supply, C2. It's 100 microfarad. So we're going to put a new one in and clean up this electrolyte, which is effectively acts like corrosion, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. I don't know if you can see it, but right here the trace is broken between the positive lead of the capacitor and Q2. I can see the break, and if I take my meter and buzz it out, so the electrolyte is actually corrosive. So you got to be cognitive of that problem. So I'll have to fix the trace. I got my new cap installed, and then on the back side of the board I just ran the trace over where it was broken. Use a little heat shrink tubing there. So let's put it back in and try it out. So that new capacitor right here on the driver board, and that solved all the problems. Now when I go into test, I can use the menu buttons just like I should be able to, and there's no test report. All the optos work like they should. Just to show you, like for instance, those optics work, the direct switches work. All the switches work now, and it's just because, and I think what happened is that underboard opto runs on 12 volts, and maybe that was stressing the 12 volts just enough in that bad capacitor. Remember, the switch matrix runs on 12 volts. Now, why does the switch matrix run on 12 volts? Why does it run on 5 volts? Well, it runs on 12 volts because Williams felt that having a slightly higher voltage would allow the switches to register better if they get dirty. That is, it's easier to see 12 volts through a dirty switch than it is to see 5 volts open and close through a dirty switch. So that's why they use 12 volts. And now we are rocking and rolling. Put the balls in. And
welcome, my love guest.
we are playing Addams Family. You know, like we weren't before.